I know the reason you clicked on this video is probably because of the scary picture in the thumbnail, which I don't blame you. It's kind of clickbait, but then again, it actually happened, so it's not really clickbait. Before I get into the story behind the picture, I just want to put a little disclaimer out there that me, the other girl in the car, my friend Kelsey, and her dog, we're all fine. We didn't have any serious injuries. None of us even had to go to the hospital. We are all completely fine, and I just wanted to put that out there before I get into the story. So now that I got that little disclaimer out of the way, let's get into what happened. This past weekend, my friend Kelsey and I decided to take a road trip up to Traverse City, which is in the very tip top of Michigan. Traverse City is all the way over here. Yeah, Traverse City is over here, and then we live in this area. So we were going up north just for like a little girls getaway weekend. They have some wineries up there, vineyards, cute little shops. It's just a cute little up north kind of town that you would go for the weekend. My friend Kelsey drove her car and picked me up on the way. We left on Friday night. We stayed at her family's cottage on Friday night, and then on Saturday we left from her cottage to go to Traverse City, where we had a hotel for the next 2 days. We were planning to stay there for Saturday night and Sunday night, and then we were gonna drive home on Monday morning. So all day Sunday, we were just kind of cooped up in the room. We were doing homework and working on our stuff and just kind of hanging out and relaxing. And then at night, we were gonna go find something fun to do. So we picked this trail, and I believe it was called the Umpire Trail. If I'm wrong, then I'll correct myself on the screen, but I'm pretty sure it was like the Umpire Trail, which is a part of the Sleeping Bear Dunes, I think. It's these huge mounds of sand, and they're basically like little hills, but they're all sand. It's actually pretty cool, so if you guys are ever in Michigan, I definitely recommend. But back to the story. We were going to go to this trail, and on our way there, we had to stop and get a few things that the trail said you should bring. So we got ready at the hotel, and then we packed up the car and we left. We stopped at CVS. After we went to CVS, we had to go and get gas because it was about 45 minutes from Traverse City, and we wanted to make sure that we had enough gas to make it there and back. So after we left the gas station, we hit the road, and it was a pretty straight shot. We were on one highway for about 30 minutes of the 45-minute drive. So we were just listening to music, hanging out, talking, what people do when they're driving down the road. I'm gonna try and tell the story from my perspective, from what Kelsey told me, and from just an overall view of what a bystander would have seen if they were standing on the side of the road. So if it gets a little confusing, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to give you guys the most in-depth story I possibly can. The speed on the highway wasn't super fast. It wasn't 70 miles an hour. I think it was 50. So we were going the speed limit, 50, 55 miles an hour. We weren't speeding. We were just cruising down the road. So we're on this highway, and this is where the car accident happens. I'm gonna set the scene for you guys. So Kelsey is driving. She had one of those pop sockets, so she had put the address to the trail in her phone, and then with that little pop socket thing, she had something on her dashboard to keep her phone there. So she slid her phone in this little pop socket holder. She was driving down the road. We were listening to music. I was sitting like this with my knee up. The other leg was down on the ground. I don't know why, but it's just so comfortable to sit like that. And I was on my phone. So I was looking at the trail, and to be honest, I was kind of scared of what animals were on the trail, and I don't know if that sounds like me just being a scaredy cat, but I was just scared we were gonna get eaten alive on this trail by like a bear or a coyote or something. We also had a dog with us. So the dog was in the back, and he was just laying down in his bed, this huge bed that Kelsey had put in the car. All of her seats were down in the back so the dog could like roam around, and then also this huge bed took up a lot of space. So the dog was sleeping in the bed. Okay. This highway didn't have a lot of parallel roads to it, but we were coming up on a road that was parallel. I don't know if I can put like a diagram in here of the road or in the crossroads, but if I can, I'll put that right here. So we were driving down, I believe it was 72 was the road, and I really don't know the crossroad. But the crossroad had a stop sign, and under the stop sign, it said crossroad does not stop in a bright sign. sign. And it was right under the stop sign. So from what my friend told me, she said that she was driving towards the crossroad and she saw the car coming up on this road and she saw that they had a stop sign, so she assumed that they were gonna stop their car. We get up pretty close to the crossroad and all of a sudden Kelsey starts saying, "Oh my God, oh my God." And I look up from my phone and this all happened so quickly. When I looked up from my phone, we were getting hit and it all happened so fast that it's hard for me to remember the specifics. So we were driving like this. If we were driving down the road like this, the car came from this side. Kelsey slammed on her brakes and tried swerving out of the way of the car. From what she said, the guy didn't even try and stop at the stop sign. He just kind of went through, or he barely stopped because he was going at a pretty high speed. I would say 30 to 35 miles an hour for have just stopped at a stop sign. So the car hit on the driver's side in the back seat, and I believe we spun, and then the next thing I know, we had tipped, and then the car didn't stop tipping and it went onto its back. So it flipped one time. It didn't flip back over. So at that point, me and my friend were both upside down. And I immediately went into panic/survival mode. We had both had our seatbelts on, so me and her were both hanging upside down. I think I was kind of in like a daze that I didn't really know like what had just happened. But all I knew was that there was glass everywhere and that I was hanging upside down, which I might be laughing now, but it's very like scary and I'm just trying to cope with it. At that moment, I thought to myself that the car was going to explode or that another car was going to hit us because I didn't know where our car had landed, and I was scared that if a car was coming down the highway, it wouldn't see us and it would slam into us again, hurting us even more. And at that point, I really didn't even know if I was hurt or if I was okay or anything. So I unbuckled my seatbelt and fell to the ground, not realizing that I was upside down and that when you take off your seatbelt, you're gonna fall. Fell to the ceiling, and I tried getting out of the car because I was so scared. The car was still on and in drive. The car was upside down, so we really didn't have a way to turn off the car, and I don't really think that was our first worry is, oh my gosh, turn off the car. We just wanted to get out of there. So I dropped to the floor or the ceiling, and the dog had found its way up to the front. He was okay. He was kind of panicking too. He was just freaked out, I think. I just tried getting out of the vehicle as soon as possible so that I could figure out where we were and what was going on. Because the car was flipped over, I was so confused as to how I would get out of the car. My window was all the way up. Well, I guess it was down, but the window was closed, so I couldn't just climb out of the window. I didn't even think to try and open the door because I don't know, the window was basically at my feet, so the first thing I thought was roll down the window. It took me a minute to find where I could roll down the window at because everything was upside down, but I found it and I tried rolling it down and it wasn't working, and that's when I really started panicking. I get claustrophobic kind of easily, so I was scared and basically I was just trapped. I know I'm telling this story like it was like we were in the car for 10 minutes, but this happened probably all within a minute time span, maybe even less. So I finally look over at Kelsey and she was okay. She was still upside down. And then she took off her seatbelt and fell to the ceiling, and she was gonna try and roll down her window, and it took her a few seconds to figure out how to roll down her window because we were upside down and the anatomy of a car was a little bit different when you're upside down. So she rolled down the window and it worked, and we finally slid our way out. I'm gonna get my phone so I can show you guys a picture of what we slid out of. Okay, hold on, let me find this picture. I'm gonna insert a picture of the window that we crawled out of right up here so you guys can see how small this window that we climbed out of was. The window was kind of on a slant, so half of the window was all ground and you couldn't really get out of that part of the window because it was just dirt and stuff. And then the top half of the window is where I could squeeze out of. If anybody had been stuck in that car that was bigger than me or Kelsey, I don't think that they could have gotten out of that way. I think they could have tried like a back door or tried getting out of the trunk or something, but that window was very, very small. So when I crawled out of the car, I saw a woman and Kelsey. As soon as I got out of the car, I started bawling my eyes out, just because, not because we were hurt, but just because I think we were so scared, and that at that moment we really didn't know if we were okay. So the woman who was standing outside of the car was from the other car that hit us. She was a passenger, and I believe it was her boyfriend that was driving. Their car was damaged, but it was nowhere as near as damaged as Kelsey's car was. I'm gonna insert a picture here of their car. So their front end was obviously crushed in. I mean, it was a car accident, but their airbags didn't deploy. And the girl said shit, her arm was a little bruised, but she was fine, and that her boyfriend was fine. Or maybe it was her brother, I don't really know. So the woman was like, is anybody else in the car? And Kelsey said, my dog's in the car, my dog is in the car. And so the woman got down and was like trying to get the dog out of the car, but the dog had ran to the back when I got out. So Kelsey was like, move over, like the dog isn't gonna come out for you, he's only gonna come out for me, so like move over. So Kelsey got down on her stomach and was trying to get the dog out of the car. And finally the dog came out of the car and he was shaking and so scared. The dog wasn't in one of those dog seatbelts, so like when we flipped over, he just was kind of getting tossed around. So Kelsey was looking at the dog, making sure he was fine, and at that point, other people had stopped because they saw what had happened, and they were asking, do we need paramedics? Like, are we okay? Stuff like that. At that point, I had noticed that I had blood all over my arm. I was basically on an adrenaline high, so I was so scared that I was bleeding from my stomach or from my head or something. I just didn't know where the blood was coming, so I was basically examining my whole body, looking up and down my arms, looking like pulling up my shirt, checking my stomach, like looking at my legs, making sure my 10 toes were there. I was looking over everything because I know in those situations, adrenaline can make it seem like you feel fine, and then an hour or two later, you're bleeding out. So I was looking over my body, and it's when and I know I'm laughing right now, but it's actually kind of funny. It's when I looked down at my finger that I realized that I had cut up my hand on the glass from when I fell from my seat to the ceiling because the windshield had broke, so there was glass that was shattered all over. But I was completely fine other than the fact that I had a bloody hand and that my head had hit the window. Because the car hit on Kelsey's side, my head went like that, and I hit the window or the part of the car between the passenger window and the back passenger window. At this point, another car pulled over to see if we were okay, and it was a man, his wife, and their kid was in the back seat. And they pulled over, and the guy was like, I'm a paramedic down in Ohio. My wife used to be a paramedic, and my son is training to be a paramedic. So we are here. I just want you to know that you're okay. If you don't mind, I'm gonna check your spine to see if you're okay. I'm also gonna look at your pupils and check your pulse. I was so freaked out that I was like, please help me. It was just anybody that was trying to help me and make sure that I was okay, I was in love with at that point. So the mom sat down in front of me and she brought me over a blanket and she was like, are you okay? Like, how are you feeling? They were asking me questions to make sure that my memory was okay and whatnot. And the guy said, sit down, don't move your head back and forth. We're gonna make sure that your spine is fine before you start walking around this place. While I was sitting down, my friend confronted the driver and said, what were you doing? And the driver said, you had a stop sign. And me and my friend look over, make sure we didn't have a stop sign. We look around, we're like, no, we didn't have a stop sign. You had a stop sign. I don't blame the woman for saying that because she wasn't driving. Maybe she was looking at her phone like I was. But she had made it seem like we did something wrong. But in reality, she had a stop sign, didn't stop, and that's why we got in this car accident. If she and her boyfriend had both looked at the stop sign for more than a second, they would know that the parallel traffic was not going to stop and that we didn't have a stop sign. If they had looked at the stop sign for more than a second or even glanced at what the stop sign had said, they would know that our traffic was not stopping, we didn't have a stop sign, and that they should stop and yield to us and then continue on their way once we had passed. The fire truck arrived first, and the guy came over and asked if I was okay, and I said yes. Like my head hurts. I didn't even acknowledge the fact that I was bleeding on my finger because I feel like he would have laughed in my face at the fact that I had a little cut on my finger. So when the ambulance arrived, a paramedic came out of the ambulance and he was like, "Are you okay to walk? Do you want to walk over to the ambulance so I'm going to check you out?" I was like, "Yeah, for sure, I can walk." I got out of the car just fine. So I walked over to the ambulance. I sat in the back of the ambulance and he was asking me a bunch of questions like, "Are you dizzy? Are you nauseous?" Questions that would allude to the fact that you have a concussion or that something is wrong. He took my blood pressure was fine. He took my pulse was fine. It's actually kind of funny, not funny in the situation, but funny what I did. When I have anxiety, I check my pulse like this. If you have ever seen me going like this, I'm checking my pulse because I'm having anxiety. So while he was checking my blood pressure, I had a little pulse thing on my finger, and I was also checking my pulse with my other hand, and I was like, wait, I don't need to do that because my pulse is on the screen right there. While I was in the ambulance, the firefighters and the cops were figuring everything out. The firefighters were getting stuff out of the car that wouldn't get crushed when we flipped the car back over, and the cop was talking with the driver of the other car and also with Kelsey to establish the story and basically what had happened. The God sent paramedic couple stuck around to make sure that we were fine and that basically that we were okay, and then they left. And then 2 minutes later they came back and the mom came up to me and said, I was halfway to my campsite and I realized that you probably don't have a ride home and that you're in a strange place and that you're not from here, you don't have a car. So she gave us her phone number and she said, if you guys need anything tonight, don't hesitate to call me. I'm a mom, I'm gonna help you guys out. Like, don't hesitate to call me. I was happy because in that situation, you want your mom or your dad, you want a parent, and I was alone and Kelsey was alone. So I was happy that this motherly figure came and was being so kind to me and my friend. While I was in the ambulance, Kelsey had called her dad and told him that we were in a car crash and that the car had I don't think she told him that it flipped over, but she told him that the car was totaled and that we weren't gonna have a way home. And her dad immediately left when he got the phone call. So by the time everything had finished and we were back at the hotel, he was about an hour or an hour and a half away. So everyone's like fetching stuff out of this car. Like they're like, "Oh, do you have anything important in there that we should get out?" I was like, "Yeah." So we got, I had like my really nice camera that I'm filming with right now. So basically all of our belongings were just scattered throughout this street. I don't know if I mentioned this, but the place that we got hit, there was like a big patch of grass. So we weren't just chilling in the road. We were chilling on this huge piece of grass where I guess that there had been an accident legit a week earlier. But that doesn't really have to do anything with my story. So at this point, all of the big events were over with, and me and Kelsey were basically just waiting for a tow truck to come and flip the car back over to make sure that we had everything we needed to go back home, because we didn't think that once we left Traverse City we were coming back for a while. So we were just sticking around for this tow truck. It took about 30 to 45 minutes for the tow truck to come, and then once it came, it took another like 10 minutes to get everything hooked up to the point where they were gonna flip the car back over. I have a video of the car flipping over, so if you get, not even get scared, but it's just not pretty noises. So if you're scared, I suggest that you skip ahead, maybe like 15, 20 seconds, so that you don't have to watch this, but I'm gonna insert the car getting flipped over here. Cover his ears. While the tow truck was flipping over the car and everything, me and my friend called the woman to come back to get us because we had no ride back to our hotel, which was 30 minutes away. Her campsite where she was staying was about 5 minutes from where we were standing, like walking distance. I can't express how kind they were and how nurturing, not nurturing, but just how giving they were. They didn't know us. They were just so nice given that they were driving us 30 minutes and that they had never met us before, and I was so thankful that they could drive us. So I was so happy. But so the car got flipped over, and once the car was flipped over, the firefighter came up to me and told me that me and my friend could go and see if the things on the ground were valuable and basically check out the car to make sure that we had everything that we needed for that night, like medication and stuff like that. So I went over to the car, and at this point all the windows were broken, every single one. So it wasn't hard finding our stuff because it was all on the side of the road. There was nothing left in the car unless it was in a glove box or something. We were basically just like picking up our stuff from the side of the road. Like just picking it out of the grass and out of the glass. There was glass everywhere because all of the windows had broke and the windshield broke. So there was glass everywhere. After we were done picking through all of our stuff, they hooked up the car to the tow truck. Why do I have such a problem saying that? They hooked our car up to the tow truck and they took it away, and we got all of our stuff that we fetched out of the dirt and we put it in this couple's car that was going to drive us back to the hotel. So we got back to the hotel where we were staying at in Traverse City, and Kelsey's dad was about an hour to an hour and a half away. And I thought it would be a good idea to rinse the glass out of my hair because didn't want it to travel down to my eyes, and I also didn't want to be laying in bed with glass in my hair. So I took a shower, rinsed off and everything, and then so we were just relaxing. I called Isaac, I called my sister, my brother, and she was talking to her mom about the accident. And then after we hung up the phone, we were just kind of watching TV and relaxing, and then her dad came. And at that point, he hadn't even seen the car, so she showed him a picture when he got there, and he was like, what? It's crazy because when I see the pictures of the car, it makes, I don't know, it's just like, how were we not more hurt in that accident? And that's where my faith comes in, because there is no way that we were in a car accident and that all that stuff happened and we are completely fine without God's, what's it called? Without a blessing. Me and Kelsey truly had a guardian angel watching over us and making sure that we were okay. Honestly, I'm so blessed to have walked away from that accident and to be alive today, because that was such a scary accident. And if one thing could have gone differently, I don't know if it would have been the same outcome. If we weren't wearing our seatbelts, that could have gone dramatically different. So thank the Lord that we were wearing a seatbelt. Thank the Lord that Kelsey was paying attention and did everything in her power to stop the car and swerve out of the way. If she hadn't been paying as close attention to what was going on, we could have T-boned the other people. They could have died. There are so many variables where that situation could have turned a lot worse. So that's where I end the story, basically. The next day, Kelsey's dad drove me and Kelsey back home, and the car ended up staying in Traverse City, and it won't be coming back to our hometown because that thing is not going to get fixed. There was $28,000 worth of damage. That's how damaged that car was. So while her car was totaled, and that sucks, me and her are okay and we're fine, and that's more than we could have asked for in that situation. I hope that next time you're driving and you get a Snapchat or you need to look at your phone, that you think twice about what you're doing, because even looking down at your phone for a second can change your life and the lives of others. And looking at your phone or reaching down for something and all those things are just so irrelevant when you're driving this huge multi-ton car. There's just like, I can't even explain how much we take for granted what we're doing. I know that Snapchat may be cool when you're driving. Oh cool, you got a song on the radio, or oh my god, you look good taking a Snapchat while you're driving, or looking down at your maps, or oh wait, I should pull up this contact to call somebody. All of that stuff can wait. I know that was a little bit more of a serious note. I just hope that this video changes somebody's mind about sending that text message or picking up your phone while you're driving, because even if I affect one person's one decision, that's more than I would have affected if I didn't make this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed my story time, and I hope that next time you're driving you think twice about what you're doing. And yeah, okay, yeah, that's all I really have to say, guys. Okay, thank you for watching my video. I love all of you, and I will see you guys in my next video.